So, one of the biggest tricks of the enemy is to make you think you're alone and what you've experienced has only happened to you. This is the way that we get caught up into guilt and shame. We ruminate on those traumatic experiences and it makes us think that we are less than. This is the reason why I'm excited about the season that we're in and how we're going to embrace our power and truly become unstoppable. It is time for us to truly build a life that we love, and we are going to deal with the things that have kept us bound. Let's get into it. For the longest time, I secretly wanted more. I often found myself shrinking to fit in, settling for what was comfortable, and even selling myself short. Once I finally accepted that we deserve success and we are blessed with the power to achieve it, I stopped playing small. I'm serious about building a life I love, and you should be too. I'm Denise Taylor of DeniseTaylor.live, and welcome to Embrace Your Power. I help women prioritize themselves, their success, and their happiness. Now let's meet this week's achiever whose story will inspire you to embrace your power and go. Well, hello there. It's Denise Taylor. And you know, I say the same thing each and every week. I'm excited to be here to encourage you to build a life that you love. Now, around these parts, we believe that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but He's given us power. And when we embrace our power, we truly can be, do, have, and achieve whatever we want. Now, I will tell you, I believe that God will divinely inspire you to go after the things that will bring you long-lasting satisfaction and fulfillment. So trust Him, trust how He leads you, trust how He guides you, because He has the best in mind for you. Now, whether you are watching me on YouTube or maybe you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I consider our connection a valuable one. And each and every week, I call Thursday Treat Day because it's the time that I know we will connect once again. Every Thursday, a brand new episode is released, and it is my opportunity to sow richly into your lives. And so if you have not taken the chance to give me feedback, do it today. There's two ways you can do that. You can leave me a rating. 5 stars is good. Leave me a rating. And you can also post a review. When I get your feedback, it always encourages me. So if we haven't connected on either one of those ways, be sure to do it today. The other place you can connect with me is in my free Facebook community. It's called Embrace Your Power, so it's easy to find. Now, as we cruise into the fall season, there is something that I am over the moon excited about. It is unstoppable time. It's time for us to truly embrace our power and become unstoppable. Now, this is my second unstoppable event. Unstoppable 2022 is going to be simply incredible. And the reason why unstoppable is even a thing is because more and more as I work with women, I begin to understand not only from their experiences, but mine as well, that sometimes there are things that have happened to us that has gotten us off course. There are experiences, there are disappointments, there are mistakes, there are choices, there are things that have been done that when they took place, they were traumatic and they caused an impact to make us think that something was wrong with us. I know from my own experience, though painful, I had to reckon with how I was going to get past those abuse experiences and really step into my future. I was hung up there. I was stalled out where abuse had the dominating perspective and it held me captive. And it wasn't until I began to understand that I could embrace my power and I could overcome that past trauma that I was able to really set myself free to soar. So last year was the first time I did the Unstoppable Conference. It's a signature DeniseTaylor.live event, and I am so excited to offer it again this year. So coming up in November 14th through 16th is Unstoppable 2022. And I want you to brace yourself because I truly understand that there are experiences that I personally have not had, but are really holding many of us bound. And so this year, God inspired me to go after 3 key topics. We are going to go after miscarriage. We are going to go after abuse, and we are going to go after abortion. Those are big topics when it comes to women, and they're big because many of us have experienced those things. And in some cases, there are some of us who have experienced all 3. And because of that, because of the guilt and the shame that can accompany those experiences, we often feel ruined. We feel that choice or decision to do or to have those things happen to us made us somehow not be good enough. A lot of the limiting beliefs that we struggle with, a lot of the things that have held us captive and bound are tied to traumatic experiences. And so, if you have experienced miscarriage, if you have experienced abuse, if you have experienced abortion, I want you to hear me loud and clear. I have 2 messages that are going to be the cornerstone messages for the Unstoppable live event. The first one is this: what happened to you did not ruin you. And the second one is this: I want you to see yourself the way God sees you. And in his eyes, you are good. I am so excited to have 3 women joining me. And these women have had firsthand experiences as it relates to these key areas. And what I love about their testimony and even the ways that they show up and serve is they have embraced their power to not let those experiences keep them bound. They found the courage to move forward and to go on and serve other women who are experiencing that trauma. And to me, that is an incredible thing when you can turn your pain into power and purpose. And so today I am excited to give you a sneak peek preview into one of the speakers that is going to join us that week. Demetrice Smith is not a stranger to Embrace Your Power. She has joined us before. She's talked about her experience around miscarriage and child loss. And I am so glad that she said yes to being a part of Unstoppable. I am so glad that she is willing to come and serve in this way. And so here's my sneak peek conversation with Demetrice, and I'll see you on the other side. So I want to do a quick little sneak peek conversation with Demetrice, and she's no stranger to this platform. We've had an opportunity to talk with she and her husband about this exact experience around miscarriage and child loss and how they've been able to navigate that together. And we also had a conversation about how she turned her pain into power and purpose as she's rising up to serve women. And so when I thought about Unstoppable and I thought about this whole perspective that many women are challenged with overcoming as it relates to miscarriage, I was so excited when Demetrice said yes to being a part of Unstoppable. And so I want to do this brief conversation with you just so that people can get a sneak peek into what you bring to the table and what you've been able to overcome with your own experience. So before we jump in, why don't you do me a favor and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I just want to thank you for even having me a part of this. As you mentioned before, my name is Demetrice Smith. I am a family nurse practitioner and a certified nurse midwife, but I typically like to say that I am a baby catcher, a nipple latcher, and I was a homeschool principal by default, but I have gladly given up that title. But so with that being said, I love being in the space of women's health and empowering women, especially during their pregnancy journeys, especially women of color, because we don't have always have the support that's needed to navigate through our current healthcare system. And so even just taking a look at my own story with lived experience, like if you take a look at my family photo, you never know that there were 4 missing smiles from my picture, right? So unless you knew my backstory, you'd never know that. And so I think that that's a big part of what's missing today, is that women will typically suffer in silence, especially in the Black community. Women tend to suffer in silence, and we are in these silos, and I think there's healing when we get to share our stories with other people. There's healing for the person who went through it, and there's healing for the person going through it. And so just all of my experiences, whether it's professional, personal, and I find that it's no matter whether your educational level, your background level, all of the things, you can have them all the boxes checked, right? And you can still end up with like negative pregnancy outcomes. And so that's the reason why I do what I do, to empower women, especially women of color. So that they can, navigate through the birth process. They can take ownership of their pregnancy. They can question and know their rights when it comes to pregnancy. Just because you're pregnant, it doesn't take away your rights, right? And so I think a lot of times, because especially if you're a first-time mom or a first-time birthing person, we don't know all of the things. And because I maybe can't verbalize it to you or tell you what's exactly going on, maybe in medical terms, then we start to like question ourselves. But so I want people to like really get into that voice, listen to that intuition that God has given you, and then like have some practical steps to know your power so that you can take, control of your pregnancy, and you can question some things that are not necessarily right.
I think one of the things that I always marvel at when talking with you is, to your point, you don't know what people have gone through in their experiences. And the more and more that we are starting to open up, which I think is so powerful, that people are indeed sharing their stories, I see this whole perspective of rainbow babies show up more often. I see people acknowledging the pain that they have had to overcome with trying again, or even making themselves available to that process. And so when we talk about negative outcomes, when we talk about miscarriage and even child loss, that takes us to such a low place that we sometimes have a hard time navigating through and moving forward from. And so when you think back to those experiences and how low they took you and how dark and how much of a demand was put on you to rise again, help us understand where many women may be finding themselves.
And that's a great question that you bring to the table. I mean, because when, and as you bring up some of the statistics, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to have an outburst pregnancy outcome. So whether that's miscarriage or traumatic birth and experience, some type of mental health condition. So we have all of these factors that kind of weigh in on us. And statistics, if we look at statistics, it's normal for you to have at least 3 miscarriages before we ever do a workup on you, which is absurd. Why do I have to go through 3 before we kind of figure out what the problem is? And so I think when we have these miscarriages or infant loss or these negative outcomes, for me, and I find for many people, it's a guilt feeling, did I do something, to this? What did I do, or what did I contribute to the problem? Could I have done something different that I would have had a different outcome? And so I think that it's a guilt thing that we go through. It's shameful. We don't talk about it. We keep it suppressed, or we feel like it's not okay to be sad, and that we got to put on our capes and keep going, right? Because we have other kids to take care of, or we have other things to do. And so we just kind of put on a mask, and we continue to move forward, and we don't actually kind of share our feelings. And so we can take that into the next pregnancy, where we haven't resolved the feelings or of the miscarriage, of the infant loss, or all of those things. And so you may have the guilt, the shame. My body failed me. Maybe I don't feel like a real woman because I didn't, bring forth a child. So we have just all of these things that cycle, and it's a vicious cycle that can continue to go through if we don't get the right grief counseling, or if we don't even acknowledge and honor what our feelings are, right? And so even when you go into that next pregnancy, we kind of take that trauma with us, that anxiety. Will this same thing happen again? It might, but what am I going to do differently? How can I navigate this space differently? And so it's just so many different feelings that I think that women have to contend with. And one of my biggest things that I tell women are even, people who have had experiences, miscarriages, especially early on, just really sitting down and asking them, how do you feel? Really, how do you feel? And the biggest thing is the guilt and the shame piece, right? Like I did this. I can remember for myself, before I found out that I was pregnant, like I really worked out really hard the day before. And like the next day, I didn't know I was pregnant at the time, but my cycle was late, but my pregnancy test was negative. And so I like worked out really hard. And then the next day I kind of had some spotting, but I'd taken a pregnancy test like earlier that day, and the pregnancy test showed positive. And then a few hours later, when I had the spotting, go to the ER, do all of the things. And they checked my beta HCG level. So that's the hormone of pregnancy. So they checked that. So it was high, but I was having the spotting, and I was like, oh my God, and I was a nurse at the time. So, but I was like, I did this. I caused this loss because I worked out really hard yesterday. And just from the sheer of, I was 6 weeks pregnant, according to what my beta levels were. But in that first trimester of pregnancy is usually 90% is some type of chromosomal abnormality that came together that caused it. So whether I worked out, whether I didn't work out, whatever I did, I wasn't the blame for it. And so that's the biggest thing that I want to get across to people, is that you are not the blame for your loss. And really understanding what those first trimester losses kind of look like. And even if you have a loss like later on in your pregnancy, that second and that third trimester. So I've had losses in each of those. And so just understanding, what are those signs and symptoms that I need to look for? What is my gut telling me? Like something is wrong. I'd rather somebody come in a million times and I'd like, oh, it's okay. We check them out and it's okay. Than somebody sit home and end up, miscarrying or have a stillbirth or something or another. So the biggest thing I think that we feel guilt, we feel shame when we, have these losses, and then we don't trust our instincts. We don't trust ourselves. So making people aware, like, no, God gave you this instinct, trust it. Like if you feel like something's not right, your body, your baby, go in and get it checked out. And that is not our fault. It's not our fault if we go into preterm labor. It's not our fault if we have a miscarriage, and just removing that stigma that's associated with it.
Yeah, I think that is so important. And it's one of the things that as I work with more and more women, what I find is there's usually something that has happened that has them kind of stuck and unable to move forward. And there's all manner of things. I'm really excited about Unstoppable because we're going after 3 key themes that I find resonate with a lot of women, including miscarriage and abuse, as well as abortion. And so I guess my biggest question for you at this point, because we have so much more that we're going to unpack during the actual event, but what resonated with you and made you say yes to being a part of Unstoppable?
Well, number one, I love you. So, okay. That was a big reason. But number two, I just think that there's such power in sharing your stories with other people. Is very empowering, because when you can connect with others who've maybe had similar experiences, it brings on a different level of healing for you. Like, okay, well, she did it. She got through it. I can do it too. And so that's what I want to be for others, is to be that beacon of light or that hope. Like, okay, yeah, it's sad right now, but you're a survivor. Like, you can get through this. That life doesn't stop right here. You know, there's more to you, and there's a bigger reason of whatever you're experiencing, why you're experiencing that. And so that's a big key for me, is just to be able to empower and to help other women by sharing my story, and then giving them some tips, some practical things. This is what you can do next time. This is where you have to be next time, right? Because it's great to be prayerful and to have all of the things, but what are those practical steps that I can take next time to improve my chances of pregnancy, or to improve, my outcomes? And so that's why I do what I do. And that's why I say yes to Unstoppable.
So I have to tell you, I am looking forward to going deeper with you when you join us on Monday, November 14th, because I know that you are a wealth of information. You have taken your pain and turned it into purpose and power. And I don't know how else to say that, because when I think of someone who has been through what you've been through, and then to turn around and serve other women in this exact space, you have not only reframed the story and gave it a new narrative, but you are taking your painful experiences and paying it forward into the lives of others and into these brimming new lives with babies and children in such an incredible way. And so I'm so excited to have you be a part. Thanks for jumping on with me today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was fun.
So here's the thing. Here's my truth, and here's the reality. I know what it is to nurse the blues. I know what it is to hang on to pain, and I know what it is to keep those things inside and secret. The things that happen to you, the things that you're ultimately guilty and ashamed about, whether you chose to do it or not, it still hurts. When you have traumatic things happen to you, it is often hard to move forward and overcome those experiences. But here's the thing that I want you to know, and I want you to hear me loud and clear. What happened to you did not ruin you. The more that I work with women, the more that I really help and encourage them to embrace their power and go, the more it exposes where we have drawn the line in the sand. You see, by drawing the line in the sand, we create a protective shell around the pain that is inside of us that no one else knows about. We have experiences, whether we chose them or not, that really have us reeling with guilt and shame. And I am on a mission to not only help you build a life that you love, but I also recognize that we have to work through and overcome those areas that we have kept close. The experiences that overwhelm us at night when we're in the bed, the ones that we nurse in the shower when we're alone, and the pain that we're feeling when we're driving in the car and a song comes on that makes us think about what happened. You see, I get all of that because I lived all of that. And it didn't matter that I was successful, because the real reality was I knew how to put on a good face. But I am working hard. I am committed to trying to help you truly embrace your power. And the one thing I know is that you cannot embrace it fully until you're really ready to identify where you've drawn the line in the sand. You see, there's this entire passage where Jesus arrived on the scene after Lazarus had died. And Martha and Mary, they were really upset because they felt like he should have come sooner and really addressed the concern that they had about their brother. And the one key thing that he says after he's arrived, he says, "Show me where you laid him down." And so I'm saying to you, because I know it's true. It was true for me. And so there's a really high probability that it's true for you too. that you have laid down your hopes and your dreams where that traumatic experience happened. Now, this time with Unstoppable, we are going to be going deeper on miscarriage because there's a lot of women who have experienced miscarriage and just don't talk about it. But the reality is, it's a very painful experience that makes you question everything about who you are, what you're designed to do, and why you are having issues giving life, giving birth. The next area we're going after is abuse. And there's so many forms of abuse, whether it's childhood molestation or sexual assault, or whether it's domestic abuse. Abuse is something that comes in at the hand of someone else who decided to use their access, their authority, and sometimes their influence to just be detrimental to you. Those experiences, regardless of if they're physical, if they're verbal, or if they're mental, are overwhelming and discredit in your own mind your ability. And then the next one we're coming after is abortion. And I'm not here really to debate whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I just know that there are women who have had that experience who are now trying to reckon with the aftermath. And all three of those areas are what we're going to address with Unstoppable. And I am so excited about the Unstoppable event because it is going to be life-changing to those who really plug in and get connected. This 3-night live virtual event is going to bring women to the virtual stage who have had this experience firsthand. They'll be talking about what it is that they went through and how they persevered. And to me, that's the powerful testimony that's going to make a difference in your life. And so I invite you if you need it, and I invite you to share it if you know someone else who does, because now is the time for us to stop nursing our blues, to stop those secret pains, and really embrace our power and go. The invitation to be a part of Unstoppable is open to everyone. And I am so excited that God has given the vision for this event to occur, because on the other side is our ability to move forward, to move on, and begin to build a life that we love. So I hope you'll join me. November 14th through the 16th, go to my website. Now, here's what's different this time. You must register. You must get your ticket to attend. This is the first time that it will not be live streamed for free. So make sure you get plugged in. This is going to be worth your investment because we're going to help you get past where you've drawn a line in the sand. Here's the interesting thing about Unstoppable 2022. There is a lifeline in it for many of us. You see, we're floating along. We're going through life. We are even experiencing some success. But deep within us, we know we are holding back because of what has happened. We have had an experience, a circumstance, a decision, even a choice that has now made us feel shame. And I want you to know that that is not God's best for you. I want you to know that you can let go of it and you can move forward. You see, the more that I work with women, the more that I show up to help women truly build a life that they love, it's the more that I begin to realize that many of us have something standing in the way. And until we deal with that, until we confront it, our ability to be successful will be limited. We have to be willing to confront it if we are going to conquer it. And so when we talk about this season's topics, miscarriage, abuse, and abortion, many of us are standing there behind the line that we have drawn in the sand, refusing to deal with the Pain. I want you to know Unstoppable 2022 is designed to help you let it go. It is time to leave the past behind, and I am so glad that Demetrice and Neka and Latoya are showing up to lift their voice and be the lifeline that will help us move forward. Now, you have to take advantage of this by registering and getting your ticket, because the nature of what we're going to be talking about really meant that we needed a safe place. A safe place where we could show up being authentic and true about what really happened. Until we are willing to face it, it is going to keep us bound. And so I want you to really consider being a part of Unstoppable 2022, because it is truly time to move forward. This event will take place November the 14th through the 16th. It's a virtual event, which means that you can join us from anywhere in the world. The lifeline that is going to be shared will help you get past the line you have drawn in the sand. And so be sure to visit my website at www.denicetaylor.live and get your ticket to take part. This choice, this decision, this experience has kept you bound long enough. It is time to embrace your power and move forward. Before I close out, I just want to remind you of one key thing. Give God your full attention. I know what it's like to focus on the circumstance, to focus on what happened, but I also know what it's like to change my view, to look to Him to be my hope, to be my security, and to be my guide. He has helped to navigate me from pain to prosperity, to navigate me from uncertainty to hope. And I want you to know that what happened to you, though it was heartbreaking, it did not ruin you. And if you need help, which I know I needed help, so if you need help, this lifeline of the Unstoppable 2022 event is available to you. Don't let it go unused. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Well, that's it, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. Don't ever forget that you are truly blessed with life, love, and all the happiness your heart can hold. Be relentless in building a life you love without apology. I'm Deneece Taylor, and you can always find me in our free Facebook community. It's Embrace Your Power. Easy to find. Now be sure to rate and review this podcast and share it with a friend. And make sure you subscribe so that we can stay connected each week. And remember, God has not given us a spirit of fear. He gave us power. So be sure to always embrace your power and go.